together. Any questions that have come up in the past week or more than the past week? Okay. So let's dive in. We're going to start out with some text study, and then we'll go beyond the text study and more into the personal. So the context, this is from Genesis chapter 32. And we are in a period of time where Jacob, who is our founding father, right? Well, I'll back up even more. So Abraham is the first patriarch to have a personal, specific relationship with God and only God. And then Abraham has Isaac and Ishmael. Ishmael is the founder of, or the not genetic founder, the ancestral founder of Islam. Isaac has Jacob and Esau. Esau, at least in rabbinic text, is seen to be kind of the ancestral founder of Rome and eventually Christianity. And so that's kind of how they're seen in rabbinic text. But Jacob is also seen as Jacob is kind of seen as the founding father of the people Israel, so who will later become the Jewish people. So the people Israel, so Yisrael literally means wrestling with God. So we're going to read that story about wrestling with God. And the context here is that Jacob, up until this point, is not a fantastic person. Maybe the rabbis in the Talmud might not say that, but he what are some of the things? He favors one, well, he hasn't yet favored one child over the other, but he will. He tricked his brother. He tricked his brother out of the birthright and his father's blessing. And so he's kind of a trickster. And now we're at a point where he is at a sort of crossroads. It's been a whole lot of years since he's tricked his brother, and he's about to meet his brother again. And he sends his family over the river to get ready to meet his brother, to meet Esau the next day. He doesn't know whether Esau wants to kill him. He doesn't know whether Esau wants to make up or anything in between. And so it's the middle of the night. And this is where our story is. Sephora, will you read this story about God wrestling?
Yes. And Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn. When he saw that he had not prevailed against him, he wrenched Jacob's hip at its socket, so that the socket of his hip was strained as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for dawn is breaking." But he answered, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Said the other, "What's your name?" He replied, "Jacob." Said he, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Yisrael, for you have wrestled with God and man, and you have prevailed." Jacob asked, "Tell me your name." But he said, "You must not ask my name." And he took leave of him there. So Jacob named the place Peniel, meaning I have encountered God face to face, yet my life has been preserved. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, Peniel. What happened in this story?
Well, Jacob, he was wrestling with God. metaphorically, I don't know, was he wrestling with a real person or
Yeah, so that's the big question. Who might be this person or this figure that Jacob is wrestling with? So one is, it might be God or an angel of God, right? Might be a person, right? Who might that person be?
um, could it be himself?
Could be himself, right? He's having a vision and he's wrestling with himself. And who else might it be? Who is he preparing to see the next day?
Brother.
His brother. So there are all these different interpretations of who this other might be. But what we do know is that that other has something godly about him. And so because of Jacob's wrestling, we have this, he is known as Yisrael, as the one who wrestles with God, the one who wrestles with God. So we as a Jewish people are constantly wrestling with God. Right? We encourage questions about God and exploring who God is and what God is, maybe even getting angry at God from time to time. We don't have a static relationship with God. We have a dynamic relationship. So my thought about who God is and what God is in my life is going to be different today than it is tomorrow. And that's why, when you meet when you meet a lot of Jewish people, not everybody is going to say that I believe in God, right? Or not that I believe in God, but not every Jewish person is going to say I believe in God, because we're known as the people who wrestle with who is God, what is God. Right?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, the voice says, you'll no longer be Jacob, but Yisrael, for you have wrestled with God and man and you have prevailed. Would that because he did it wrong? I mean,
Say that again.
he says you have prevailed. So in what way did he prevail? By surviving?
I think surviving. Yeah. Right. Surviving and also kind of getting, right, he's the man or whoever this figure is needs to go at dawn because he'll be seen. But Jacob's not going to let him go until he gets a blessing. So what does it mean? And that's a fantastic question. What does it mean to prevail when we wrestle with God?
That just made me think differently because I didn't realize that it was Jacob who was saying, I didn't realize it was Jacob asking for the blessing.
Mm-hmm. So the play-by-play is this angel or this man pulls Jacob's hip, and then but this angel says, okay, time to go, bye. And Jacob says, nope, not until you bless me. And so he says, fine, what's your name? He replies, Jacob. And the angel says, nope, no longer Jacob. You're now Yisrael because you have wrestled with God and man. But we don't know who this person is or who this figure is. You must not ask my name, he says. And it doesn't say so here, but after this line, not so relevant to the God discussion, but Jacob limps away. And the Torah goes on to say that's why we don't eat the sciatic nerve, because that's the part of the hip that was strained. All right. So we're going through just a few basic, central Jewish texts that deal with who God is, what God is here. But the one prayer that I would say most Jews know, if you were to ask someone Jewish, recite a prayer, this is the one that they would probably go to. And I have a story about this. One or both of you may have heard me say this story, so you can stop me if you have. But when people ask why I became a rabbi, there are a couple of different answers. One of those is the longer term, how, the learning that I went through and all of that, and what appeals to me about the rabbinate. And then the other is a story about my little brother. So my little brother is 17. Oh, today is 17. I have to tell him happy birthday. He is 17 today. And when I was in high school, he was in preschool. And I came home from school one day and he was running around the house and he was screaming this particular prayer. And this had always been my prayer. I had always, whenever I needed to pray, would start with these particular words. And now my brother was reciting this and running around the house screaming it at the top of his lungs. And so for me, that was the moment when I started thinking about the connection between each and every one of us, that we have such similar connections with God and also so different at the same time. And I wanted to explore that. That's what sparked my interest about God and Judaism. So we'll learn this prayer. We have Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Traditionally, we say this prayer with our eyes closed because Shema means to listen, or it's a command, listen. So Shema means listen. Yisrael, I love this translation, means God wrestlers. But Israel is God wrestlers. Adonai is this particular name of God, right? Is our specific holy name of God is Eloheinu is our God, right? This is Adonai again, and Echad means one. And this, just for some context, I know that Sephira, you're learning Hebrew. This is just the letter Hey. So it doesn't actually mean anything by yourself or by itself, but it's kind of a symbol for God's holy name. So we don't write God's holy name unless when we know we're going to throw something away or not treat it with a particular type of sacred treatment. We don't actually write out God's holy name. We leave it for Torah. We leave it for if we've got a prayer book that we know we're going to use for years. So if we write out God's holy name, we don't throw it away. We bury it instead. So which is why in a lot of texts we don't write it out in full. So listen, Israel, Adonai is our God. Adonai is one. What does that mean?
Well,
I was going to say it speaks to the, I guess, theism, that, kind of contrary to there being pagan gods, that there's one God, and acknowledging that God is one.
Yeah. Right. This is especially in the time of Torah. Right? This is a big statement. We only have one God, and it's our God, right? And this is from Deuteronomy. So previously, if you're looking at previous books of Torah, it's not clear that the God that we're talking about is that the people who are worshiping our God are only believe that there's that one God. Because previously, before Deuteronomy, there's this understanding, okay, this is our God. We're really, really faithful to our God, and our God is better than all of the other gods. But here in Deuteronomy, we're really concretizing the idea that that this God, our God, is the only one who's out there. This is monotheism. Right? There's no other God. My God is the same God as your God, is the same God as their God. That our idea of God is the one idea of God. and the one God who's out there, who created this world and sustains this world. So what were you going to say?
I was going to say that I tell everybody that we serve one God, and that's the way I see it. There is one God, and like Judaism serves the God, my God, same God. Christianity serves God, same God. So, I mean, I've always thought there's one God.
Right. And we're just we're worshiping God in different ways, and we see God theologically in different ways,
Exactly.
but it doesn't change that. It doesn't change the idea that we were all born in the image of God. We're
Right.
just trying to get to that idea of God from our different places. We're trying to develop theologies that bring us closer to what God wants from us, because none of us really know. We try to know. But what I think is really, what I really like about this text in teaching about theology is that we have two names of God in this prayer. We have Eloheinu, which is El literally means God, like lowercase God, like God as a noun. Okay. And so Eloheinu is our God, our specific God. But then we also have God's personal name, Adonai. So God is, we're going to talk a little bit about transcendence and immanence. Transcendence is the idea that God is Father and King and so much more than us. God's looking down at us and points God's finger and says, this is going to happen to you. This is going to happen to this person, right? God's playing a big game of chess. Right? That's the transcendent God, right? That God's so much more than us, but also God is immanent. God is really involved in every single thing we do. We can have a personal relationship with God. And both of those things are possible at the same time. So when I think about the interplay between transcendence and immanence, I think about Eloheinu, about the God who is our specific God, our God. This is our idea of God. We believe that our idea of God is who God is, but at the same time, there's Adonai. There's the God who's everybody else's God. So it's not just that we're people who believe that there's one God and that's our entire theology. We believe that there's one God, and there are specific ways that we believe that there's one God, and there's specific actions that we do to confirm that belief. Questions or thoughts or comments on our central prayer? And we really say this twice a day.
So I guess I'm confused. Is this a prayer? Is that what you're saying?
So this is, yes. So this is,
Listen up, God wrestlers. That's the prayer.
That's the prayer. It's a one-line prayer. And we say it morning and evening. We also say it, and it's also a quote. It's Deuteronomy verse 4.
Okay.
And we also say it right before, if we believe that we're about to die, or if we're with somebody who's about to die, we say this prayer, as we try to make this the last words that we say.
Okay.
So this is, there are lots of different melodies for this. But it's the one part of the service that everybody chimes in with because everybody knows it.
It's easy enough.
It's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 6 words. But here's another prayer that's a little bit longer. And it's really, we say this prayer at the very end of services. Sephora, you're probably used to it now. It goes through the transcendence and the immanence of God. And we we kind of speed through it because people are going to lunch right afterwards, and this is the pack up your stuff prayer, right? That we're about to leave. But it's just this, I think it's this beautiful exploration of who God is, in a transcendent view and in an immanent view. So I'm going to sing it for you in Hebrew. And while I'm singing it, I invite you to read along in the English and to circle or star, remember one line that really sticks out to you that you identify with in this idea of who God is. Adon olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nihira le'et nasa v'chefzo kol azai melech shemo nikra ve'acharei kichlot hakol levado yimloch nohora Vehu haya, vehu hove, vehu yeh, betifara, vehu echad, ve'en sheni, lehamshil lo, lehachbira, veli reshit, veli tachlit, velo haoz, vehamisra, vehu eli, vechai goali, tzorchev li, be'et tzahara, Behunisi umanosli menat kosi beyom ekra beyado afkid ruchi be'etishan ve'ahira ve'im ruchi geviati Adonai li velo ira. And just while you're writing and while you're reflecting, one thing to know, this prayer actually goes really well with any melody, with any song you can think of, any melody. So with Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, Adon olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra, or the Imperial March, Adon olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra, right? So any song you can think of, it, just the meter of it works. It's a beautiful poem. Joyce, did you have a line that stuck with you?
Well, there's several that stick with me. I love the fact, the very first line, the eternal one rule for the birth of anything else. I mean, that's a strong, the eternal one rule before the birth of anything else. So that really rings out to me.
Right. Do we think we're so important, really? Because who knows what was before, but God was there.
Right. Yes. I like every line. I mean, I can really relate to every line in both the transcendent and the immanent.
Right.
I love into God's palm I place my spirit.
It's this trust. I mean, when we go to bed, it's a beautiful prayer to say at bedtime, because when we go to bed, there's so much fear because we don't know where we're going to be in our dreams. We don't know how life is going to be when we wake up, but we're saying, God, I entrust this to you.
Or if we wake up,
I'm going to entrust this to you. I know you're with me. I'm not afraid because you've got my back, or you've got my soul. Right. And I love that it starts with the transcendent and then goes into the immanent, because there's this God who has so much power, and this God is taking care of me.
Right. Personally.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
What about you, Sephora?
There's a lot that I love this whole study. When I was preparing for this call, I opened the book accidentally to the page that says wherever you are, it's probably Egypt. And so just taking both pages of this in, like that sense of transcendence and immanence, I want to say it's something that I'm still wrestling with, but also continuing to put my faith and trust in, about, I think before I've had like this sense of separation from God, in terms of like, I do feel like God is higher than me, like, but then it's like, I've had a lot of faith in that God's my support and shelter when I've been sick or hurt. I've always just had this complete faith that I'm going to heal. But what I've struggled with is this sense of like praying for what I desire, like something about I can't have it or I don't deserve it, or like I underlined this line, when God made all according to his will. So I've had this feeling like, your will, not my will, God. But then I look at this and, I've had someone tell me that God places a desire or a calling for a reason. And, like, but still I wrestle, I guess, with, is it my will or is it God's will? And so it's like, then under the imminence, God's involved with us. It makes me think about co-creation. And then the one who fills my cup when I call, which indicates to me that I ask God with faith for a blessing that I will receive. And that's kind of what I read about with Jacob, about him wrestling with God, like, I will not let you go until you bless me. Like, he wrestled with God with this faith that you will bless me. Like, that was his belief, that he would be blessed. I don't know. And so I don't know if it's making sense what I'm saying, but I just know that my faith is growing. And from a place of feeling more disempowered and separate from God, maybe that God's not on my side just because of maybe my past, into more of a sense of God loves me and wants to bless me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and we were talking about this a little bit, unanswered prayers, in that, God's will does not always line up with what we think is the right blessing for us. And I think Jacob's story is a great example of that, because Jacob gets this blessing, but this isn't the end of his story. So Jacob gets the blessing from God, but the blessing is, look, you're going to keep wrestling. Right? It's not, I'm going to give you endless wealth. It's, you're going to keep wrestling. And the rest of Jacob's life, actually, towards the end of Jacob's life, he goes to visit the Pharaoh in Egypt. And the Pharaoh asks, how old are you? And he says, my life has been really long and bad. Right? That's his answer at the very end of his life. And so he doesn't live a fantastic life, but he has this blessing of being the father of the people Israel. Right? He has this incredible future. And so he doesn't realize, he doesn't have the best life at that moment in time. He probably thinks that his life is bad. And he's this inspiration for so many different peoples, for countless peoples in the future. So the picture is bigger than we think it is, which is sometimes really painful, but sometimes comforting. It can be both. I love this page. So in our prayer book, we have lots and lots and lots of different metaphors and names for God. And so here are some of them. So I want us to take a few minutes, and I'm going to mark on the screen also what I think here, but I'd like you to figure out 3 to 5 names that you feel comfortable with or are meaningful to you. And then 3 to 5 names that you don't feel comfortable with, right? Or that are challenging for you or not meaningful to you. I'll do the same thing. You can let me know when you've finished. Okay. For me, the names that are, and every time I do this, I think differently. The names that are sticking out to me today are very different than ones that I've checked in the past. I love Eloheinu, our God, because it's a reminder that not just my God, that we've have this shared.
That's good. Yeah.
We use Eloheinu in so many different prayers, and sometimes I just skim past it, but it has a lot of meaning. El Norah, it says terrifying one, but I also, Norah really means awe. It's awesome God. And I find myself, I think lately being in a lot of moments of awe, of that, that terrifying awe, like the tornado that happened earlier this year, the idea that, I mean, it was so sudden and we didn't see it coming, and no one in the neighborhood got hurt. It was just buildings, and that
Material.
it was just material, but the power of it was just incredible, incredible and terrifying that God could do that. The omnipresent and the presence, those are big for me. Just knowing that God is here in this conversation right now. And the King of Kings, or the ruler, it's actually not the King of Kings here. This is the King of the Kings. Right? So this is 3-time king, right? This is the ruler of all of the rulers of all of the rulers. And again, Joyce, you and I were talking the other day about, how ridiculous politics are, but knowing that, somewhere out there, there's somebody who's actually just and knowing and capable ruler of us all is a comfort, and it's also a challenge for us to step it up. So those are the ones that are ringing with me today. Are there names that are sticking out to you, either positive or not so positive?
Something interesting. You chose the I can't say it. Our
okay.
God.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I chose my Lord, but then I chose our Father, the one that says our Father. But I hear what you're saying about, and I chose highest God. But when you think about that, He is our God, our Lord. So, but I want to learn how to say these.
We can go over it one at a time.
Okay.
We'll go over it.
Okay.
But this one, so the ones that are, I can say the ones that are most used. So Adonai is used a lot. So that's Adonai, like an I. And Eloheinu is used a lot. So it's hey, as in hay is for horses, right? Eloheinu. These are the two that are used most often. I'm trying to think of other ones that are used often. Melech is used, so that's kind of like
What number is
10? So it's kind of like meh, lech. It's got the sound at the end. But if the sound is too difficult, you can always just replace that with just a normal hey, or with normal H, melech. Trying to think of other ones that are common. Oh, I missed some. Let's see what else. Shalom is used often. Shalom, although I've never heard it used as God's name before. So those are really the big ones.
okay?
Sephora, how about you?
I had some similar ones that you mentioned, but I don't know. Ruach Haolam, if I'm saying that right, it's 31. Ruach Haolam, Spirit of the World. That resonates with me. And then Shekinah are just beautiful words. The ones you put an X on were the same one I put an X on, or that I didn't resonate with.
It's that one's one that's really hard for me, right? Those two, the Master of Armies or Man of War. Those are really hard for me. And as I'm getting older, I'm starting to resonate with them more, because I think I used to really not like anger at all. I used to shy away from anger and just used to think anger was a terrible thing. And now I'm seeing, as I'm getting older, I'm seeing more of the use for productive anger. And I think it makes more sense to me that, when something's important, we need someone there to fight for us.
Well, and then I had a similar, like, I guess, dichotomy of the way I looked at those is, after having experienced some really intense and scary spiritual warfare, I guess I do have some resonance with that because I feel like God pulled me out of that. So, yeah, I did think about that a little bit.
But I hate what I really stand is the physical violence and the hatred that some people will put out there in the name of God. That's what's difficult about those names for me.
I agree.
Do you have other names on here that were difficult for you?
Well, I agree with both of you that I didn't say the ones I didn't like, but the hidden one was one that I said I didn't like. I don't think God hides from us. And the Man of War, and the other one was Master of the Armies.
Right.
So,
right. It's, even if God does some fighting for us, right? That's number one. That's the most difficult part for me about Torah, are dealing with those stories, where God is physically guiding our armies. But number two, it's what people do with those idols in this world that's really difficult. But I agree that the hidden one and nothingness, those are all Kabbalistic. Those are bits of Jewish mysticism, and I don't really identify with Jewish mysticism. It's kind of a side theology, but all right. I do want to get here at some point maybe, but I think what I'd rather do right now is take some time. Sephora, do you have your book with you?
Yes.
So what I'd like you to do for just a few minutes is to first read these theologies and see, is there one here that resonates with you or that you have questions about? So you'll pick one to talk about a little bit, and then we'll take our own time to write our own 100-word theology, because each of these are theologies in about 100 words. So first step is we're going to pick one to discuss, or to ask questions about, to challenge. You'll pick one, and then after that, we'll write our own. Joyce, is there one or two that you have questions about or that you connect with?
I find it interesting. There's maybe a little bit in each one that I can connect with, and then there's a little bit that I don't connect with. So I really give it thought to see if I can connect with the entire.
I think I'm in the same boat looking at these. I find some of them a little too fluffy,
Yes.
and then some of them a little too logical.
Mhm.
How about you, Sephora?
Yeah, I didn't really resonate fully with any of them until I read the very last one.
Mm.
I resonated with more of the words. It's kind of more like a prayer. And then the one right before it, at first I didn't resonate at all. I don't know. So I feel like it's one of those things where the more I read and like depending on where I am in the moment or the day, they might resonate in different ways. But so I think that the second to last one and the last one, a combination of those two is more of how.
And I think I'm in the same boat as well, in that like I love the first bit of the second to last one. I believe that God is most caring, loving, commanding, involved. God listens, responds, and has a plan. And I think I agree with most of the rest of it, but I don't think it's so I mean, I think offensiveness is a word that I wouldn't use. I do think that it's logically, that at least in my human logic, it's really difficult to feel like I'm saved by God while others are suffering at the same time. That's something that I can't seem to logically solve. But then it brings me to the next paragraph, right? That God isn't really logical in the way that we in the modern world often think of as logical. Right? Sometimes what God chooses is beyond knowing, and we try to know it. That's our goal, is to get to know God as intimately as we possibly can. But at the same time, we're not there yet. So I think I agree. It's that, for me, it's that mixture between the last two. I didn't see anyone else other than the second to last one, talk about that commandedness, that God commands us to do things.
Mm-hmm.
We are obligated to do things because of God's love.
I think that's where obedience comes in.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people refer to obedience as the 10 Commandments, but I don't. I
Mhm.
think God leads us and guides us, and we're supposed to follow what his lead is.
Mhm.
And to me, that's what obedience is, and it all connects.
So there's this branch of theology, and it's not just Jewish. It exists in Christian theology too, called process theology. Do you know process theology?
I've heard, I don't know what it is, but I've heard it.
Yeah. So it's this idea that that when we are presented with a decision, God is the one who guides us towards the right decision. We're always at a crossroads in our lives, and God is telling us, through God's presence, spiritual presence, through the text we learn from God is guiding us towards the right decision, and we have to choose that decision or not.
Right.
God has a plan, in that God has somewhere God would like us to be at the end of the day, but it's our choice to figure out how we're going to proceed with that.
Right. We have to follow his lead.
Right.
Yes, I agree with that. Your phone fell on the floor.
That's okay. I'll get it later. Great. So now I know it's probably a little hard for you to write.
A little.
But So then instead of writing 100-word theology, I'm curious, and we can take a minute first. How would you express God in a few sentences, the God that you believe in? And maybe we can take a minute to either write or to think about it. So I'll give us till my clock says 12:56. And then you don't have to share your entire thing, but we can share as much as you feel comfortable. Oops, I went past that. I said I would.
It's okay.
Oops. Now I need. Right. Sephora, are you ready?
Yeah, sure.
So how you can share as much as you'd like, but what's your 100-word theology?
I don't know if I have 100 words, but I did pull some things that resonated with me from some of these other theologies. The last sentence in the last one about, I do believe that you are the consciousness embedded in all that exists, uniting and guiding. That resonates with me very strongly, particularly the word uniting as a keyword versus divisiveness, which I feel like is something that brings about a feeling or sense of separateness from God or from others. So I guess I have a sense or belief that the unification of people is something that God calls for us to have. I wrote that, I've had a sense of God always being present my entire life, even since I'm a child. And even in moments throughout my life when I felt there's an absence, it's like if I just tuned in, then God is never like not present. I'm the one that's not present. If, and so I'm the one that went away, so to speak. And then I just want to add, because I really resonated with this on the first page, the last theology, Rabbi Deborah Silver, because she says, when I ask, where is God in this? She says, there have been some moments when I have seen or felt or trusted, and I can live off the energy of those for a long time. And so I get that as well. I have the sense I've had like some of those, like, I want to say supernatural experiences where it's like God's presence was made very undeniable to me. And so it's like those, I can never forget those moments. So it helps me to remember.
Mhm.
I guess that's all the words that I have. I could write more or say more, but
How about you, Joyce?
Well, I just put that God is my everything. Just like I told you, when you said we're going to talk about God, that's my favorite subject. He's my creator, my healer, my savior, my guide, my peacemaker, my comforter, and my comfort in time of need, my protector. He's my everything.
And it's your relationship with God is very personal.
It is. It is. I know, like she said, I know that God is there. If anyone leaves, it's me. I know he's always there.
For me, whenever I do this exercise, it's different. Kind of like you both are saying that God's always there, but I always kind of approach God differently, I think, every day. So I wrote, God is in the little miracles, Shalom's development. That's where God shows up for me the most right now. That he is both so unique and so like I've heard other baby boys are. And that pregnancy and marriage is like that too, right? Where I feel like I am so unique. I'm going through things that no one has ever gone through before, and that I'm going through that same thing as everybody else, so that God has created each of us, each atom, each living being with one particular stamp. Right? We're all created by the same God, and God gives us the will and the courage and the guidance to go from there. That God can both create us so similar and so diverse at the same time. We show our love for God by doing God's will, so by doing God's commandments. And God is beyond concrete definition, but that prayer and the texts that we study in whatever religion we're in, are the inspiration for the language we can use to describe God in a way that we can use for our lives going forward. So today, that's the God that's resonating with me. Thank you for learning with me today. Are there any other questions about how God is talked about in the Jewish tradition? So we will, I think, let's see what next week is. But thank you for learning with me. This is one of my favorite classes because it's so personal.
I love it.
thanks for teaching. Yeah.
Say that again.
Thank you for teaching us.
Okay, so I'm trying to see what class 11 is. Chapter 11? Oh, you have the book in front of you.
Yes.
Kashrut. Oh, this one's fun. I was saying this to Joyce before. Kashrut is my favorite thing to teach and one of my least favorite parts of Jewish observance. So we'll have a great time next week. All right. Have a good afternoon, all.
Bye.